10 minutes before 8 here on the program. Yesterday, Bonginkosi Khanyile managed to hold a meeting with government officials after spending a night outside the union buildings in a bid to attract the president's attention to his case. Khanyile travelled to Pretoria this week to seek a presidential pardon after his conviction by the Durban Regional Court for public violence in possession of explosives, assault and inciting violence earlier this month. Now, we're going to be joined by Bonginkosi in the next hour here on the program. He's running a little bit late, so hopefully chatting to him just after the news at 8. But right now, we have got with us in our SABC parliamentary studios, Khomotso Moshikaro. He is a private law lecturer from the University of the Cape Town. Good to have you on Morning Live, Khomotso. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So if we consider pardons, and the president has to look into this particular case, what are some of the issues that can be granted for a presidential pardon?
Well, essentially, the president does have the discretion in terms of Section 84(2)(j) of the Constitution to grant a pardon or even to remit a sentence. However, he is restricted in doing so by three factors. The first is that he can't violate a right in the Bill of Rights unreasonably or unjustifiably. Two, he can't act in bad faith. So, for instance, he can't be bribed and induced into doing so. And the third would be that he can't do so irrationally, contrary to the principle of the rule of law. But the Constitution does still give him quite a wide discretion. It also allows him to pardon an individual or a category of persons at his discretion.
Okay, so great things to consider for the president and how the Constitution actually works and what his powers are as president. Let's look at this particular case, though. This case, how is it categorized? Is it a criminal case or a civil case?
So if you are convicted of public violence, that would be a criminal charge, including assault and all the other attendant charges. The president does have the discretion to pardon you for criminal offences as well. Yeah. And so the language of Section 84 is quite broad. It says any penalty or fine can be remitted, and the word pardon ordinarily would include criminal offences as well.
Yeah, but in Bonginkosi's case, if we look at his circumstances and that has led to his conviction and him asking for a pardon, do you think he has a chance?
Well, the argument that would have to be launched is that even if there is an argument that mercy ought to be taken in this particular instance, it must be in the public interest or according to public welfare, at least, or in line with public welfare. And I suppose notionally an argument could be constructed that this was a political protest and that particular factor ought to be taken into consideration. However, we have yet necessarily to have a case where the president pardons an individual because of their involvement in political activities. And in the course of pursuing those political activities, they committed a criminal offense. And so it may be the case, actually, that the president may be able to pardon in this respective case. In fact, the language, as I said earlier, is quite broad, and courts do allow the president quite a wide discretion in this respect.
A lot of people are under the impression that pardons are actually granted by the Department of Justice, not necessarily the president. But what you're saying is it actually is the president's right as well to give pardons. Obviously, this is a presidential pardon. But does the Department of Justice play any role in a pardon?
Well, if he's asking the president to exercise an exclusive constitutional power, and that is vested specifically within the office of the president and not the department.
Yeah. So, I mean, just looking at pardons that have been given in the past, as you say, an individual hasn't necessarily qualified for a presidential pardon as yet, but his particular case, fees must fall. It was a very, very difficult time in South Africa's history. We have seen university fees now. It was something that has won. But perhaps maybe this case, Bonginkosi took it a little bit too far. Or do you think he had the right to do what he was doing?
Sorry, no, I mean to amend my earlier statement. What I said was that the president has not yet, or a president has not yet pardoned an individual in these kinds of circumstances.
Okay. Certainly.
The president has pardoned, or former presidents have pardoned particular individuals. But on the facts of this case, the essential core argument that must be launched is that someone must show that it is in the public interest for a particular individual to be pardoned. And perhaps an argument about fees must fall may be made on either side, and that would have to be launched and considered. I mean, eventually, I suppose it can be reviewed by a court and tested. But at least the grounds on which the president will have to exercise his powers will be that he must act in the public interest, even when he's pardoning a particular individual.
You know, when the presidency actually responded to what Bonginkosi is actually doing, they said that the presidency said the activist pilgrimage to the union buildings is misdirected. It should rather go to the Justice Department. The president is sympathetic to and appreciative of the justness of the cause of the activist. However, the petitioning of the union buildings is unfortunately misdirected. The president cannot interfere with the prosecutorial decisions of the NPA. They go on to say this is one of the sacrosanct principles of our law, so he cannot decree a blanket amnesty as some of the calls demand. I mean, this is, I suppose, written in black and white now by the presidency, so I'm not sure this is going to work for him.
Well, I suppose what the president is effectively saying in that instance is that he's refusing to exercise his prerogative powers in terms of the Constitution. So what can happen is that the current accused in this case, or the convicted offender in this case, may appeal their criminal conviction and can go through the court process. But even after that, he may still approach the president, and the president may still exercise his power to pardon. So it isn't the case that the president is precluded from exercising that power. It just seems that in this particular instance, the presidency is hesitant to do so. But they do still have the discretion to do so.
Thank you for talking to us. Thanks for the clarity with regard to law. But as we have mentioned, Bonginkosi Khanyile should be here any minute. We'll have a conversation with him. And also remember, in the background to all of this, remember Mcebo Dlamini, well, he, of course, embarked on a walk, and that was to the union buildings from Johannesburg. This, again, is to highlight his cause, also wanting to sort of have charges dropped against him. His case is going to be heard in September, and it's the same story. It's public violence and damage to property as well. So that's something to watch out. But do stay tuned. Bonginkosi Khanyile, our guest in the next hour. Let's take a break. We'll have your news at 8 for you.